Hey guys, welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. Adam here. Today we have several things on the docket, so to speak. The first is, now that we have all that stuff at Eve settled down, I want to take a moment to return our poor Kerbonaut who's out on Minmus. Pretty sure he's got enough life support for a few more, like another week or two here, but kind of want to get him home with his science and whatnot too. So I'm just checking his stats there. Everything's looking good. I ended up realizing before I did this launch that I did not have sufficient life support aboard the main section that would be returning. It was an oversight on my part. So that means we have to take the entire rocket back. It's not a problem here on Minmus because the gravity is not an issue, so it's not going to be a problem to lift this whole thing off and take what would usually just be the landing stage to return that as well. So just balancing out some stuff to make sure that he has food and stuff in the actual pod part at the top for when we actually return to Kerbin. So I finished transferring stuff. I was pretty satisfied, and just retracting the ladders because, I don't know, it looks better I guess with the ladders retracted. Getting ready to blast off again here. And we don't have to disable any of the engines or anything at this point because we're taking this whole thing with us. Look how much fuel's left. It's like, I don't know, 4/5, 5/6 of a tank of fuel left in the landing stage alone. So it's kind of too bad. I like to leave the little lander behind just so that it's kind of another marker of where I first landed, kind of Apollo style and stuff. But anyway, here we go. We're on our way. It doesn't take a lot on Minmus at all. Barely even touching the throttle here, and we're already on our way. So just kind of heading on, towards the general direction of east here. Try to get up into orbit here. So we've already got a pretty decently high apoapsis here. So I'm just gonna have Jeb do the circularization burn. And we'll be ready to plot our course back home. Alright, so we've achieved orbit. I'm having some difficulty getting a maneuver node set up there, as being ridiculous. I'm just trying to find an optimal place to do the burn from. So I'm deleting whatever maneuvers are left. Just kind of break orbit. Head on home here. I have a lot of fuel, so I wasn't really that concerned about doing the most accurate burn ever because I'm going to have way more fuel. We haven't even tapped into the usual return stage on this thing, so pretty much just burning generally in the right way, and I'll fine-tune my periaps into the atmosphere once we get a little bit closer. I'll do a maneuver to do that. So long for now in Minmus. We shall return very soon, I hope. Alright, so at this point I am just programming Jeb to lower our periapsis, so we'll definitely be within the atmosphere of Kerbin. I don't really care where it does it, so I just told it to do it immediately pretty much. I always do like 60 seconds or so, 30 seconds, just so it has time to turn the craft. So we'll get this burn done, and he's going to be on his way home. It's going to take a couple days still to get back. This is still before the asteroid return mission, so the days were on 24-hour days or whatever, so it's been a little confusing getting used to the new stuff in later episodes, but I'm pretty satisfied with that, so let's go ahead and move on to some other stuff. And this is a probe that I designed. We have a launch window coming up for Moho, and we haven't sent anything out there yet, so I'm sending out a probe / mapping combo here. I like to combine my probes and stuff out to these interplanetary missions on one craft as much as I can. I actually have two craft that we're launching to Moho in this episode. So this is going to be the first. It's pretty much a standard launcher that I've been using for the MUN and stuff. It's a little wiggly here on the pad, but it'll be alright once we get going, I think. It's got a couple of liquid fuel boosters, so 3 of them, and it's got 3 solid rocket fuel boosters too. It's a relatively small payload on the top. All my lifters are relatively the same these days. So I'm not really expecting any trouble particularly with this. So we'll just cut to the orbiting burn here. Alright, so we're coming up on, well, we're nearly out of the atmosphere. Our apoapsis is now out of the atmosphere here. Good separation there. As you notice, I did want to talk about this a little. You can see that there's no interstage there on that Nerva engine there. The reason I did that is I've actually been having some difficulties with the interstage parts from, I believe they're from the KW rocketry pack, not separating correctly, and it will leave part of the craft there. I'm just separating, even though there was some fuel there, separating that so that that will deorbit itself, so I don't have to do that later. Now you get a look at the probes here. As you can see, there's just two of them. One of them is just a basic ScanSat that has the instruments that I actually have for ScanSat right now available there. Go ahead and set up our relaying here so I don't forget to do that later. Activate that bad boy. And then the other one just has some instruments on it. It's also going to act as a polar relay for any future missions that we do out there. The main craft here is actually designed to act as a relay satellite as well, at least temporarily, until I get a proper relay network set up. It's going to be responsible for relaying signals, so we definitely don't want to deorbit the entire thing. The other craft we can, but this one needs to stay up and keep everything going out at Moho for now. So we'll just wrap up this burn. It's going to be a little bit of a lengthy one here because of that nuclear engine is not the speediest thing ever. We only have a 0.29 thrust to weight ratio, so it's going to be a little bit here. Alright, so we are wrapping up our burn here. It's been a really long time, actually. I probably should have held on to the main stage for longer just to make sure that we didn't end up dipping back into the atmosphere like we did, but we've got both the periapsis and apoapsis out of the atmosphere now. Unfortunately, I only have almost a little under 7,000 delta V left for the craft, and I did not really put any provisions on here for refilling the fuel, but it will probably be good enough for as long as we get our Moho transfer done correctly. So at this point, what are we doing? I actually don't remember at this point. I'm doing post commentary. I've been doing that lately, and I don't know. Oh, I'm going to the relay station and making sure that that's set. So basically, the idea behind this relay station, I know I can just set things for active vessel, but first of all, I think they're removing that feature in the next version of what's it called? Remote Tech. I believe I read that they were going to be doing that. So I want to make sure that I have a dish for every planet basically at some point. So whenever we run a mission, I'm going to be adding another wing to this station out here so that we have communications. And it's been working fine. I still need to send a ship up to move those arms around because they're just wherever I docked them randomly when I came up here before. So I do want to fix that at some point, but not right now. Alright, so we're back in the vehicle assembly building. We're going to go ahead and load up the second craft I'm sending out to Moho, which is a rover and an observer. The observer just has that camera that we used around Minmus. That's going to take some pictures and get some science back that way. It has a couple of other instruments on it as well. It's largely similar launch vehicle to what just went up. It's a little bit heavier because the rover weighs quite a lot. It's going to be my first attempt to landing a rover in this save file. So my sky crane, I'm not really that happy with the design. I haven't been able to get the rover body that I really liked working right in this save, so I kind of had to just put together whatever I could get working here. So let's go ahead and get this thing blasted off. As you see, it's the exact same setup with the 3 liquid fuel and 3 solid fuel boosters there. So it's a proven launch platform. I have better stuff in later episodes, but that I've recorded that I haven't done commentary for yet. But this thing's been working pretty well for getting this stuff up. Now, one thing I am doing differently, I just set that target as the observer. Ooh, that was a little scary. I set the target there as the observer mapper vehicle, the other ship I just launched. And the reason I'm doing that is because I actually didn't have enough dishes available to give individual ones on the station to each of these ships. So I'm doing the tracking, kind of relaying through one of the ships back to this ship. So the first one is going to have the main signal coming from the relay station. It has a second dish that's going to relay that signal back to this vehicle, and that should keep us in communications as long as this, the first one doesn't crash or run out of power or something like that. Alright, we are coming up on booster separation here. Things have been looking pretty good on this this liftoff here. And Boom. Alright, nice clean separation again. Everything's cool. So we're going to be losing the payload fairing in a minute here, and we'll be able to talk a little bit more about the rover. As you can see, I still have the same design where the Nerva engine's just kind of exposed there, because I did try a couple of times launching one of these with interstage there, and it just stayed in place. It was pretty annoying. We're going to... Oh, that was not good. The engine's firing still, and I separated, so see if we can twist this thing out of the way here, and we get a lag spike. That's great. Let's see, there, it was almost out of fuel anyway, so it's gonna mess up our apoapsis slightly. It doesn't really matter. Let's deploy stuff. We got that dish already pre-set up, so we're all good with that. And you can kind of see the screwed upness of what I have going on in the front there. There's a probe, and there is a rover. Let's see if we can get the sun on here. So you can see the observer probe, and then kind of a messed up looking sky crane and a rover. I'm concerned about the rover landing. It hasn't been tested yet, but I do want to, try getting the rover out there and see what happens. So at this point, we'll let Jeb do its customary circularization here, and I will be back. Alright, so we have successfully put the rover observer into orbit. So I'm just setting the other remote tech dish on the other ship to be targeting the rover ship, so we'll have communications. I don't want to forget to do that before we take off. So just making sure it's done, even though we're not going to be doing the transfer for a little while longer still. Get this stuff ready. So we're back out at Eve now. And what I'm doing is I'm just, I have maneuvers set up here pretty much to bring the orbit back into really what I want it to be. So I don't have a lot going on. It looks like 19 hours until this, so we're going to go ahead and just delete the alarm here and execute the maneuver. It's got a lot of stuff going here. So the transfer window is not for almost a full day out to Kerbin, out to Moho. Those are estimations, they're not exact, so it really doesn't matter if we hit it exactly. I always try to launch pretty much when it says to. So, it's a good idea, especially Moho is one of the more difficult planets to get to, so I want to make sure I'm kind of on the ball with that stuff. Alright, so Jeb is slowing us down for the maneuver. It's a teensy tiny maneuver. Not sure. I don't remember. I think I'm just trying. Oh, my periapsis is still in the planet, so trying to bring that up so we won't be unplanned deorbiting this thing. Just make sure it's in a stable position. I wanted to do it as far out because I have a decent amount of delta V on this thing, but you do it as far out as you can. It's more efficient, saves fuel in case we need it for other maneuvers later. So I'm activating a dish here. We have the horrible signal delay, but that actually popped up just fine. But what I'm doing is targeting the other ship with this dish, and I ended up learning during this mission that I could just fast forward, and the computer, it would slow down time. I could do the time warp, and it would slow down time when it was actually the signal delay had caught up. I didn't know that at this time, so I'm just going to skip ahead a few seconds here until things have actually happened. Alright, so our dish is deploying. Everything's good to go with that. It did not activate it, did I? I'm not sure if I activated that, but I probably did. So we're switching over here. We're going to switch the other dish to point here. So the idea is communications are a little dicey this far out still because I don't have a good relay system. So I'm just wanting as many signals relayed back and forth between these. So if one goes behind Eve, hopefully the other one will still be in somewhat range of Kerbin so that it can bounce the signal around. It's a little dicey still, but it's the best I've got for now. I don't know why sometimes when I do the vehicle switch that way, it zooms out all the way. I always think my ship blew up or there's been a glitch, but it's all fine. So I'm just setting up the corresponding dish here on this ship now to deal with that. Alright, so our relays are set up. As you can see, this still has a periapsis that's down inside of the planet's surface, so we'll be coming back to this in a couple days to do a maneuver. You can see there's a listed maneuver, 2 days, 7 hours, 15 minutes. That's to bring this periapsis up as well. Now, at this point, there's really nothing left for me to do, so I just wanted to fast forward, waiting for our transfer window to pop up for Moho, so we can get that stuff going. Alright, so we are back into the first Moho ship. I've got my transfer set up here. It's going to be a really lengthy burn. Going to get Mech Jeb executing it. This is where Mech Jeb really pays off. I have some ships in later episodes that I've been working with that have a burn that's like an hour long, and no thank you, I don't want to do that. So we got a pretty good encounter there. Obviously it's going to have to be tweaked on the way out there, I'm sure, because these things never seem to carry over into the actual sphere of influence change, but it's looking pretty good. Let's get this burn underway. Alright, so we are picking up our ridiculous speed to break the bonds of Kerbin and head out into interplanetary space here. Just wrapping this burn up. Kerbin's rapidly shrinking in the background, which is always a nice sight. Definitely enjoying the clouds at this point. This is still not updated, so it's pre-volumetric clouds, but they still look pretty good. And Mech Jeb has done his finest duty there. So we are on our way. We'll see how well the predictions for the orbit actually hold up in practice here. Looks like, yeah, we've lost our encounter. I don't know if the burn just wasn't accurate enough or whatever. But we're in the general right ballpark there. So once we leave the sphere of influence of Kerbin, we'll probably go ahead and do some maneuvers at a later point and kind of fine-tune that. But it's probably good enough for now. So we're going to head back to the Space Center, switch over to the other ship, and we'll get our maneuvers set up for that as well. And of course, they'll invariably end up getting screwed up as well. But I'm going to go ahead and tweak the maneuvers for that ship, and we'll get that burn underway here. So we have another lovely looking maneuver set up here, which I'm sure will not come to be. And part of the reason is I didn't match for the plane, I think. So it's a really narrow window where we actually get an encounter there. So I never really do a plane correction for going to Moho, partly because I'm not really sure how to do it exactly, because of its inclination and all that. It's a little challenging, but it gets the job done. We can correct it en route. Hopefully it won't be too expensive in terms of delta V. Alright, well, our rover probe has pretty much finished up its burn here. We are going to probably be off on our encounter again. I expect as much. I am very concerned about the delta V at this point. We're down to, it says 4,000. It's probably actually a little bit more than that, just because I don't have my decouplers set up. They're all just kind of jammed together into one thing there, due to the fact that I'm going to be manually staging this, and I didn't really bother setting up the decouplers correctly. I just kind of dumped them all in one stage. And again, we do not have our proper encounter there. Now I know about the ascending node and the descending node, and that's where I'm supposed to change my plane, but like I said, I really have never bothered. I probably should. It would make stuff a lot easier, I'm sure, out at Moho, but I haven't bothered. Now, we have one last thing really to deal with in this episode, I suppose, which is returning our other man back from... is that what we're dealing with right now? What am I dealing with right now? I think I'm just time warping at this point. We still have Jebediah on his way back from Minmus, but I think I was setting up a maneuver now? What was I doing? I don't remember. Alright, so we are jumping over to the lander that is returning from Minmus. I haven't forgotten about him. I had an alarm set up for him. He's got about 9 hours left until we actually return, so the other probes are on their way out. We don't have anything to do for 2 days, so pretty much going to time warp, get this guy home here. Now, I'm being really cautious with the time warp because I've been burned many times by high time warp trying to return home, where you'll just go right through the planet, and I don't want that to happen, so I'm going kind of cautiously here. Plus, it's a nice view. The distant objects mod, I can see Moho and Eve both there in the distance towards the sun there over to the right under Kerbin right now. Moho is down there, which is pretty cool, and enjoying the nice clouds and what have yous. I really enjoy that distant objects mod. Alright, so now is the time to kind of just, we'll delete the alarm. Time to just cruise in on a lower time warp now. And hopefully it will realize when we actually contact the atmosphere and kick us out of time warp. And it did, I think. Yes, it did. Cool. So, there's tons of fuel left in this craft, but I really don't need any of it. I don't need the food. I don't need anything that's left, really. This thing is well overbuilt for a mission out to Minmus, but for whatever reason I retract the panels just because I don't know, just in case. And just kind of waiting for our braking to happen here, so I'm going to burn off some of this fuel. I might as well. I mean, we don't really need it raining down on cities, do we? So take a little bit of the edge off of this re-entry if I can here. I may as well. Alright, so we're starting to get into the deeper part of the atmosphere here. I've just been burning on a really low setting here just to, like I said, to take a little bit of the edge off. I didn't want to do too much, but I'm officially feeling like we're low enough now that I'm probably needing to ditch stuff. Yeah, we're starting to get re-entry, so don't want stuff exploding on me here, so I believe I'm going to ditch it. Let's see if this scanner works. Well, whatever. Not going to be returning that. The parachute definitely can't land this whole thing, but see if we can salvage any data. It doesn't look like it can. So I'm just trying to see where we're going to be coming down. Looks like the ocean. Actually, no. See, the apoapsis is still way up high, so I wanted to come down on the day side here, so I'm going to do some additional burning. At this point, I mean, if stuff explodes, I guess it explodes. The capsule will probably be alright. It was my thinking, and we're starting to gain altitude again, and I really didn't want to go around the planet again, so want to bleed some of the speed down. Our apoapsis is still really high, and at this point I was kind of feeling good enough about things to ditch that. Now that's interesting that clips through the fuel tanks like that, but I guess that guy will just stay up here for a while. It should return on its own. Things don't always seem to return on their own, even though I think if they're below 50 kilometers, they're supposed to, regardless of physics range and stuff. But anyway, we're really just waiting it out now. And again, I just started burning because I figured, why not? And I still did want to try to land on the day side. This has been a very gentle re-entry compared to what I usually do, just because I don't usually have this fuel left. I usually come in at about 3.5 kilometers from the Mun, or 3 kilometers, I forgot what it usually is. I think 3.5. And so I usually don't have the luxury of having all this extra fuel left to slow down, so it's kind of nice. But we got our return trajectory for sure now. We're definitely not going anywhere now. And it does look like we're probably going to be coming down in this ocean here. Or maybe the land. I don't know. We're kind of still gaining altitude, so it might come down on the land. Depends on how much this is slowing down. I'm not very good at calculating this stuff. I should probably be using MechJeb just to get estimates of where we're going to be landing and stuff. But it's not really any other science to gain at this point. It's really just a matter of riding this thing down. So we've reached our current apoapsis at this point. I turned on the engine again, just because I wanted to make sure that I landed on the daytime side, and we were coming up on the Terminator, so I wanted to get this thing slowed down. We were already on a suborbital trajectory, so there was no chance of going back into space, but I would really rather land at least with some daylight, just because, I don't know, I prefer to. This means that we're really not going to have any re-entry effects to deal with at this point. We're down to 2 kilometers per second at this point of speed. And we're still going to be dropping here a little further, so it's really going to be a light re-entry. We probably don't even need any heat shield at this point, but still good to have it. And I may have to design a different kind of craft for landing on Minmus, just because this thing is way overpowered for what we need to do out there. But it's what we had on hand, so... Alright, so we're burning through the last little remnants of our fuel. We have 13 seconds or so of fuel left. We've really slowed down. It's just really left the engine on the whole time, because I figured, why rain a fully fueled fuel tank down on some innocent people down there on the surface? They might as well get hit with an empty one, I guess. So she's all done. We can go ahead and stage here. Get rid of that thing. The heat shield is superfluous at this point, so we'll get rid of that as well. And just let the parachutes do their job, and we'll gently float down to the surface. Alright, so we're just floating ever so gently down to the surface here with Jebediah, and getting all that lovely science back. Let's see how much we actually end up recovering, and it's gonna tip over. And whatever. Doesn't matter, I don't think anything broke off, so we're cool. And Jeb made it home. Cool beans. So, let's see what we actually got out of this ship here. 514, so we have a total of 1,477 science. That's pretty good. Let's see what we can unlock over here now. We should be able to get some decent stuff going here. Heavy rocketry. That sounds pretty promising. It would be nice to get some of these bigger engines, especially some of the bigger tanks too. Make it a lot easier. Oh, in the main cell, yeah. Let's go ahead and do that. Various little wings and stuff. Cargo bays, panels, Kerbal attachment system stuff. And those little struts are really, yeah, I'll take that too. The little struts are really important. So that's about all we can afford at this point. And I think that's where we're going to end it today. Thanks for watching.